Hi, and welcome back to Poem Praise 2. We are going to start a new book. It's uh, Lies My Teacher Told Me. We are now in the introduction. So let's go ahead and get it started. First, peace be upon you, and let us get to the book. The introduction to the second edition. I really like your book. Lies My Teacher Told Me. I've been using it to heckle my history teacher from the back of the room, a high school student. I just wanted to let you know that I don't consider Lies My Teacher Told Me outdated. I really don't see much improvement in textbooks at all. High school teacher, Sherwood, Arkansas. I was expecting some liberal bullshit, but I thought it was right on. Worker, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, Berkeley, California. Now, readers new to Lies My Teacher Told Me should go straight to page 1. The introduction tells old friends and enemies how this edition differs from the first and why it came to be. Since it came to be largely because readers' response to the first edition was so positive, the introduction sees self-congratulatory to me. Another reason to skip it. Lies My Teacher Told Me does take readers on a voyage of discovery through our past. However, and some readers may want to learn the reactions of fellow passengers. From the first day, readers made Lies a success. And its name implies the New Press was a small fledgling publisher without an advertising budget. Word of mouth calls Lies to sale. The books first created a stir on the West Coast, although the book is considered controversial by some. Libraries in Alameda County in California can't keep it on their shelves. Reported an article at California State University at Hayward. A high school student wrote to the editor of the San Francisco Examiner. I was a poor D-plus student in history until I read People's History of the United States and Lies My Teacher Told Me. After reading those two books, my GPA in history rose to 3.8 and stayed there. If you truly want students to take an interest in American history, then stop lying to them. An early review in the San Francisco Chronicle called Lies an extremely convincing plea for truth in education. And my book spent several weeks on the Bay Area bestsellers list in 1995. Independent bookstores, the kind whose owners and clerks read books and whose customers ask them for recommendations, spread the buzz across North America. Turns American history upside down, wrote Joan of Toronto in 1995 in a column called Best New Books Recommended by Leading Independent Bookstores. A landmark book, she went on, a must-read, not only for teachers of history and those who write it, but for any thinking individual. The Nation, a national magazine, said that Lies contains so much history that it ends up functioning not just as a critique, but also as a kind of counter textbook that retells the story of the American past. Soon, Lies reached the bestseller list in Boston, Burlington, Vermont, and other cities. It was also a bestseller for the history and quality paperback book clubs. In paperback, Lies has gone through more than 30 printings at Simon and Schuster. From the launch of Amazon.com, Lies has been the sales leader in its category. So, as far as I can tell, Lies is the best-selling book by a living sociologist. Counting all editions, including recorded books, sales of the first edition totaled about 1 million copies. I wrote Lies My Teacher Told Me partly because I believed that Americans took great interest in their past, but had been bored to tears by their high school American history courses. Readers' reaction confirmed this belief. Their responses were not only wide, but deep. My history classes in school, I found, were not important to me or my life. Email one reader from the San Francisco area because they did not make it relevant to what was happening today. Some adult readers had always blamed themselves for their lack of interest in high school history. For all these years, I am 49. I have had the option that I don't like history, wrote a woman from Utah, when in truth, what I don't like is illogic or inconsistency. Thank you for your work. You have changed my life. Many readers found the book to be a life-changing experience. A forklift operator in Ohio, a 47-year-old housewife in Denver, a do-gooder in upstate New York were inspired to finish college or graduate school and change careers by reading this book. Words cannot describe how much your book has changed me, wrote a woman from New York City. It's like seeing everything through new eyes. The eyes of truth, as I like to call it. While readers repeat adjectives like shocked, stunned, and disillusioned, many have also found Lies to be uplifting. To be sure, not every reaction was positive, although one reader never could decide whether you were a socialist or a Republican. Others thought they could and that Lies suffer from a leftward bias. Marxist, hippie, socialist, anti-American, anti-Christian, commented one reader at Amazon.com, who would be shocked to learn my feelings about capitalism. What a piece of racist trash, said an anonymous postcard from El Paso. Take your sour mind to Africa, where you can adjust that history. That was, of course, a white response. A very white response. Very different has been the reaction from Indian country. A reader who I infer is part Indian wrote, "Your book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, and especially the chapter Red Eyes, has had an unprecedented effect on how I view the world. I had never felt inclined to write a letter of approval for anything I've read before. Your description of the Indian experience in the United States, and more importantly, the concept of syncretic American society, has subtly but powerfully changed my understanding of my country, and in fact, my own ancestry. If, as Lies My Teacher Told Me shows, history is the least liked subject in American high schools, it is positively abhorred in Indian country. There it is, the record of 5 centuries of defeat, yet properly understood. American history is not a record of native incompetence, but of survival and perseverance. From speaking before Native audiences in 6 states, I have come to understand to what extent false history holds Native Americans down. I now believe that only when they accurately understand their past, including their recent past, will young American Indians find the social and intellectual power to make history in the 21st century. That understanding must include the concept of synchronism. I'm going to spell it for you, Syncretism, blending elements from two different cultures to come up with something new. Syncretism is how cultures typically change and survive, and all Americans need to understand if Native American cultures too must change to survive. Natives, as well as non-natives, often labor under the misapprehension that real Indian culture was those practices that existed before white contact. Actually, real Indian culture is still being produced by sculptors like Nalanik Tamila, spelled Nalenik, last name Temela, which is page 133, so we'll read about that as we get more into the book. Musicians like Keith Secola and American Indian parents everywhere. Lies has also enjoyed huge success among African Americans. In the fall of 2004, for example, it reached number 3 on the bestsellers list of Essence magazine and was the only book on that list by a non-black author. My students, who are all African Americans, were immensely enthused and energized by your book, wrote a sociologist professor at Hampton University. A Missouri native wrote that he found Lies My Teacher Told Me and Lies Across America incredibly empowering and planned to buy an extra copy of both books and leave them in the barbershop I patronize in downtown St. Louis. I figure if 1 or 2 kids read it, it will make a huge difference for generations to come. Working class groups and labor historians have also enjoyed Lies. Thanks again for your scholarship and solidarity in helping show the side of the story that best reflects the roots of the other 90% who aren't wealthy, wrote a non-wealthy reader in 2004. Programs in gay and lesbian studies and women's studies have also invited me to speak, even though Lies My Teacher Told Me, unlike its successor, Lies Across America, contain no explicit treatment of sexual identity or preference or gender issues. Prisoners respond positively too. A Wisconsin inmate, for example, wrote, "My congratulations to you for your courage you had to have to write such a book that goes against the grain. Hardly least regular white folks, even males, like my book too. Perhaps because I take obvious satisfaction in and give credit to those white men from Bartholomew Bartolomé de las Casas through Robert Flournoy to Mississippi Judge Orma Smith, who have fought for justice for us all." And that does complete this take for the introduction of the Lies My Teacher Told Me. It's going to be another take of the introduction. It's going to take us a couple to get through it, but we're going to continue to keep it on. So stay tuned. The poem prays too. From me to you. Peace be upon you. Talk with you soon. So until then, later, y'all.